We have closed captioning included here. And then as like I mentioned earlier to Azelle, but those who have just joined us, we do have a PDF slide ready to send off to you all after today's presentation. So we'll send that out shortly after. And so all of y'all that have registered, you'll get a copy of it. We'll also provide you with instructions on how to access this recording when it's available. But I first want to start off. So in the chat box, share your agency. So who do you represent? And then if you were to choose right now how you're feeling, what your mood is, are you going to choose French fries or side salad? French fries, side salad, PUCN fries, lottery fries. I love this. French fries, have you had potatoes? This is awesome. Thank you all. Thank you for humoring me. I love this stuff. Cool. Thank you, thank you. And so we will be utilizing some of the, we'll be using the polls function. So I'm curious to know, where are you joining from today? Are you working remotely? Are you joining from the office? Got 83%. All right, I'll go ahead and I'll close the poll in a few. Yes, and you're welcome to use the chat box if for some reason the polls aren't working. Feel free to put that in there. So, oh, this is fun. I'll share my results. So it looks like, okay, like 56% working remotely, some joining from the office. Nice. Sherry Bend, oh my gosh, Central Oregon is beautiful. All right, cool, thank you all. So, you know, wherever you're joining from today, you know, I personally love doing these kind of virtual sessions because I think that when we're looking at access and kind of reaching people where they're at, sometimes like having it virtually, it can reach more people, right? But I do miss the in-person interactions. And so, you know, kind of part of my plan or priority moving forward is to offer options, whether I go to your space, your office, or host, you know, workshops or conversations or facilitate conversations for, you know, virtual. I do like having options to kind of meet folks where they're at. But I welcome you all. The Office of Cultural Change, we were established in 2020. And really, you know, what our really goal and mission is to really bring our communities together, bring our agencies together, share a lot of the great things that we do, and kind of be support for each other. I look at us as a bridge to bring everyone and thread all of our collective efforts. And so we do education, providing, you know, resources, doing one-on-ones, you know, consulting about your affirmative action plans, your DEI plans, things like that. If there are any equity questions or concerns that you have and you want to bounce ideas off of my, you know, from me or Brianna, you know, we're here to do that. So I think maybe really the end goal is to really allow for you all to feel empowered, feeling empowered to do this work, to do this change work, because it's not easy, as we all know, right? We're living, we're breathing it. It's a part of our position. For some of us, it's an addition to our full-time work. And so I recognize that. So, you know, really providing you all the tools so that you could feel like you have what you need to be successful in your role. So we are currently a team of 2, but I really love to give credit to Serena, our former manager. You know, when this office was established in 2020, she was building a foundation from the ground up with cultural events, with really just with everything. And so She is now the deputy director over at Early Learning, and we're super excited for her. And Brianna and I still talk to her on a regular basis. So wanted to acknowledge Serena's work. And a little bit about myself, and then I'll pass it on to Brianna, and she could share a little bit about herself. My background comes from education, and you may see a little bit of that education side come out in me when you see me facilitating conversations or workshops like this. My background, I used to work for the University of California system at UC San Diego and UC Irvine, where I did recruitment and admissions and worked on scholarship programs, creating scholarships for everyone. That was, I think, when we think of affirmative action, we look at how it was also in the education system. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. But before here at DAS, I was at Oregon State Lottery, and I see some of my former colleagues here. Super happy to see you. And I was a senior talent acquisition partner and doing the recruitment side of that. So also training, doing interview panel trainings and how to create an inclusive interview environment for candidates. A part of the candidate experience is my jam, and something that I think is definitely key when it comes to recruitment is creating a comfortable environment for candidates to be themselves so that they could share their stories in an authentic and genuine way, right? So you think about being your best version, you probably want to be in an environment that allows you to be the best version of yourself. So I will leave it to that. And Brianna, I'll go ahead and let you share a little bit about your background.
Thank you, Juliet. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Like Juliet said, my name is Brianna Duke, and I'm the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coordinator with DAS. My background is in communications, and I had the great opportunity to work with Serena and partner with Serena when she was firstly in her Chief Cultural Change Officer role. To diversify the boards and commissions. And so I worked with her to really strengthen the communications and make it accessible for our Oregonians. And she then was like, hey, come join my team. I was like, of course, I'm so passionate about this work and the wonderful work that she established. And I am grateful enough to be in this space with all of you. And although this work is really hard, I feel honored to be in this role and just work alongside of all of you and the amazing work you're doing. So thank you, Juliet, for the opportunity to introduce myself. And again, thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you, Brianna. And I went ahead and there are a few people that joined us. So welcome for our new folks that joined us. We just did some quick introductions and we will have a recording available. We will send instructions on how to access the recording shortly after our presentation today, our workshop today. And also, please, you do not have to rush in taking notes. I want you all to be present here, absorb information, process things. So we will have the PDF slide deck will be sent out to you all as well. So, hey Blake, what's up? You want to go ahead and unmute your mic? You have a question?
Yeah, yes. So my name is Blake Dye. I'm with the Oregon Judicial Department, and I want to thank the wonderful staff at OCC for partnering with us for our Juneteenth program last month. It was great to have you all join and for you all to be able to open it up to the executive branch. We had a huge turnout of people. And so this wouldn't have happened without your partnership. So I do appreciate that. And I just wanted to publicly acknowledge you while we had a moment.
You are so sweet. Thank you. You know, you give me goosebumps because I think that in a time where you know, we're all for maybe majority of us, like the work that you're doing is an addition, right, to what you're currently doing. And anytime you want to like acknowledge, feel free to raise your hand, acknowledge. I think it's important. Working in state government, we're expected to do a lot of work, right? And so, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Blake. Oh, another poll. So tell us, what did you come for today? You can select multiple. Are you here to just pick up all the important information? Are you wanting to make new connections? Do you want to learn new things? Do you know about executive orders and the affirmative action, and then the history of affirmative action? You're just looking to refresh your memory? Or again, no judgment. You're not sure what you want. That's okay. We're here for it. That's fine. Okay. We got about, okay. We got 93 participants on this poll. Oh, I wonder if we can get to 100. Oh, does that mean I have to do it too?
I think so, Juliet.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, we're gonna be at 95%. Okay, so I'm gonna end the poll and I'll share my results so y'all can kind of see what we're looking at today. Okay, so we look, maybe the top 3 is picking up all the important information, learn new things. Oh, I love that. Growth mindset, y'all, that's important. And what's the other? Oh, make new connections. Yes. Cool. I'm going to stop sharing. Let's close this out. And that was the last poll for today. So. All right. So I think this is when we kind of jump into the nitty-gritty of today's workshop. Let me move. Okay. So I think it's important. So we're going to go back in time. We're going to look and kind of understand and read the context in which executive orders related to affirmative action were initiated. When we're doing this work, when we're doing work like this, I think having a kind of like a basic understanding maybe of like the history of it might help some folks, like the why, right? Why are we doing this? So let's look at, so Louis Menand, a longtime staff writer for the New Yorker and a professor at Harvard University. He was awarded the National Humanities Medal by President Obama in 2016. For those of you who are unable to see our slides today, I will, well, especially with this one, I'm gonna go ahead and read this quote, this piece from his article from the New Yorker in 2020, titled "The Changing Meaning of Affirmative Action." I'm gonna read it, process it, and follow along. So, once we amended the Constitution and passed laws to protect people of color from being treated differently in ways that were harmful to them, the government had trouble enacting programs that treat people of color differently in ways that might be beneficial. We took race out of the equation only to realize that if we truly wanted not just equality of opportunity for all Americans, but equality of result, we needed to put it back in. Our name for this paradox is affirmative action. So what you're going to see in my slides, I always like to give credit to where I find this information. And because you'll have a copy of this, you'll have direct links to these articles and resources, okay? I also want to point out Diana Ijaita. She is a Berlin-based illustrator and textile designer. She does a lot of illustrations for the New Yorker, their magazine covers. I believe she's from Nigeria, but she's based in Berlin. So have a look at her work. It's really beautiful work. So to understand state level executive order, I'll share a bit of history about the federal level executive order. So the term affirmative action, it was introduced to the Kennedy administration in the 60s by African-American lawyer Howard Taylor Jr. In 1961, at the inaugural ball for Texans, that's where Vice President Lyndon Johnson had a conversation with Taylor. Johnson invited Taylor to his office and handed him a draft of an executive order, which later became the Executive Order 10925. That executive order established, and as you can see here, the definition of executive order, according to the American Bar, is a written directive, signed written directive that's published. So that executive order established a committee. That committee was the President's Committee of Equal Employment Opportunity, or EEO. Now, Taylor, excuse me, I am recovering from potential COVID, but I'm fine, I'm not in pain. I just lose my voice every once in a while, so I'm just take a sip of my water. Okay, so they established the committee, and Taylor read the draft, and he was like, I need to work on this a little bit. And so Johnston asked him to rewrite it. Now, this is when Taylor inserted the words affirmative action. Now, part of the committee's scope included awarding federal contracts and also required that government contractors, and I quote, this is by definition, this is what I found on the, I think it was the Department of Labor website. So to take affirmative action to ensure that applicants are employed and that employees are treated during employment without regard to their race, creed, color, or national origin. So affirmative action, it was intended to serve as a mechanism to hold firms accountable, so an accountability tool, by implementing something like, don't just stand there, do something. And I say that, so like, you're not just gonna put that in executive order, right? It's like, it's an official document. So that's why he coined the term affirmative action. So when you hear affirmative action, what that means is do something. Now, we're looking at the state level. In 2005, Governor Kulongoski, I think I said that right. I practiced it with Brianna. It issued the Executive Order 0511 related to affirmative action to initiate training on affirmative action. Now, since then, there have been 4 amendments, and 2211 is the most recent one. And we think about like how long has this been around in the state? It's been around for almost 17 years now. But I think that we are finally like getting this momentum, and people are hungry and excited to do more work around this. So we're living in a good time right now to really do this work and support each other through it. I'm just looking at the participants to make sure I'm not missing any hands raised or questions. Awesome. Now, so according to the U.S. Department of Labor, affirmative action must be taken by employers to recruit and advance qualified minorities, women, persons with disabilities, and covered veterans. And so what that looks like, it's like training programs, outreach efforts, things like that. They also state that these procedures should be incorporated into the company's written personnel policies. So for those of you who are in HR, this is all new to you, yeah, or not new. This is like, you totally know this is your jam. But for those of you not in HR, we do have to keep these in record, and we have to implement them and update them annually. And that's on the Department of Labor. But I'm going to jump into affirmative action planning next week. So I think most of you are registered for that workshop. And we're gonna dive deeper into affirmative action work and planning and writing out your plan next week. But what you're looking at here is a visual that what it illustrates is that a sense of belonging is the output of DEI programs that are implemented by an affirmative action plan. And so like the key element in creating an inclusive workforce is the community that puts this action into place, that actually does the work and implements it. So I think that there are multiple ways to interpret this. And again, this is like my brain synthesizing a lot of the things that I've read and learned. I didn't take this illustration out of a specific publication. It's kind of like, if you could see my brain and the things that it's going through, this is like the most organized way to view it. So, and I'm just really curious. Now, I know for me, this makes sense, but for you all, like, use the chat box. Does this illustration speak to you? Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? You know, what stands out? I'll just give it a little bit of a pause, and if anyone wants to share anything, and it's okay, you don't have to share anything if you don't want to. Thank you, Jonah. Yeah. Yeah. Workforce, yes. Right? You think about our workforce, the people, yeah, often overlooked disability to make change personable. Yes, belonging, right? It's a sense of belonging. Yeah. Awesome. And if this doesn't make sense to you, it's okay. It's okay. I encourage, like, if any of this does not make sense to you, let's have a conversation, maybe outside, and we can unpack things and kind of, you know, share our thoughts and help, like, come to an understanding, right, on what makes sense. Because that's kind of how we do the work together, is create shared understanding. Awesome. Thanks, Megan. I see a question. What does this say? I'm thinking about how people who don't really understand this work, yeah, could this illustration bridge the gap? Could it? I hope. I mean, if it could, I think that'd be awesome. But it's a work in progress, you know? So if you all think that I could add some elements to this that can maybe help your organizations see or understand, especially for folks that are visual learners, right? I'm super visual. It took me a full day to put this together. And I actually got some help from folks. I don't know if you're all in here. Heck, are you all in here? Raise your hand if you are. I remember kind of sharing this visual with you all, and I was like, I don't know if this makes sense, right? And then we think about in our education and learning, we read from like left to right, like equations, right? And so originally I had it flipped around. And so they had helped me see that maybe I should alter this a little bit, you know, change it. Awesome. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, Blake, I love it. It's for discussion. I like that. Okay. So we're going to move on. All right. So here's a video that talks about affirmative action, and it's about a 3-minute video, and I'm gonna I'm gonna go ahead and let Brianna play the video for us.
When I was born, the color line in America wasn't just a fact of life, it was the law of the land. But by the time I was old enough to go to college, black students had begun to integrate the nation's historically white colleges and universities in significant numbers for the very first time. The key to our rise was affirmative action.
In 1965, Lyndon Johnson goes to Howard University and he gives a speech where he talks about the need to have affirmative action in federal employment and federal contract opportunities.
You do not take a person who for years has been hobbled by chains and liberate him, bringing up to the starting line of a race, and then say, you are free to compete with all the others, and still justly believe that you have been completely fair.
In the following years, affirmative action would dramatically transform college admission policies, and I was among its first beneficiaries. The class that entered Yale with me in September 1969 was comprised of the largest number of black students ever admitted. All too soon, however, affirmative action came under attack.
The pushback against affirmative action was almost immediate. In 1977, Alan Bakke applied to go to medical school in the University of California system. He was denied entry, and so he sued, saying that lower standards had been applied to African American entrants.
What Alan Bakke complained about was the fact that there was a set aside for 16 students of color to gain admission. His argument was that he was being subject to reverse discrimination.
Alan Bakke won his reverse discrimination case today, but affirmative action programs to help minority students won also.
The Supreme Court ruled that racial quotas were unconstitutional, but it upheld affirmative action programs that take the ethnicity of applicants into account in college admissions, both to help overcome past discrimination and to foster diversity as a core value of the educational experience. Since then, affirmative action has further been rolled back, mostly through cases related to college admissions. With current litigation pending in the increasingly conservative courts, affirmative action's days may be numbered.
There's never been a period where any effort to integrate African Americans into American society was not immediately denounced as preferential treatment. Adjusting the criteria for admission for students of color who have not had the same kind of access and who frankly bring a different knowledge base to the university, that's not preferential treatment, that's equal access.
All right. Thank you, Brianna, for playing that. If you all want to share thoughts, anything that stood out. Affirmative action is, and I will admit, when I had started my career in higher education, I had a hard time understanding it because I felt like, are these quotas? You know, what are we doing? You know, and so I'm gonna make sure, am I muted? Because that would be really embarrassing if like I said so many things and I was muted. Okay. Let me pull this back up and share my screen. Oh, I'm not muted. Okay. So here we are. And okay. I'm reading the chats. Just reminds me of struggle against privilege and finding common ground. Yeah. Is my screen showing now? Okay, let me get my chat box open again. Megan, yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yep. Okay, so, all right. So thank you all for sharing your thoughts. Brianna found this really great video, and you know, we were kind of thinking like, this video is perfect because we talk about Lyndon Johnson and his role and Hobart Taylor's role in the executive order. And then she found this video, and really glad that she found it and shared it here. So the revisions of Executive Order 2211, it stems from a culmination of collective efforts with partners. Those partners include the governor's office. It includes executive leadership teams, ELT, from a variety of agencies, and also various departments or offices within DAS. DAS is short for Department of Administrative Services. You know, and what that looked like is, you know, we having conversations about what this executive, what does it mean, right? What do some of these orders or directives look like. We did working sessions on making edits and revisions to these. We did meetings, we shared thoughts, we asked a lot of questions to understand. That was super, super important. I'm going to organize. Do you see my mouse kind of circling the screen right now? And I don't see faces, so if someone can.
Juliet.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Do you see the chat box?
No, we just
Okay, okay, thank you. I'm trying to set my screen up so I can see everyone's chats and the slides. Okay. So this might be new to some of you, and that's okay, or it might be familiar. You might be familiar with this. The governor and the agency leadership, they made a commitment to prioritize equity work, and as a result, this statewide DEI action plan was created. And Oregon is one of the first states in the U.S. to create this DEI action plan to work on dismantling institutional and structural racism in state government. So when we're looking at the amendments that from this executive order, it was inspired by this action plan. It was published last year in August of 2021, and it was to guide efforts to dismantle racism and establish a shared understanding. It really intended to complement agencies that are already doing the work. So the existing equity work that you're doing and the initiatives that you have, it's there to complement, but also provide guidance for agencies that are maybe early on in this journey. But as I mentioned earlier, that there is a goal, especially for the Office of Cultural Change, is to bring us kind of all together to share these initiatives and journey. So I really encourage you, if you've read it, read it again. It's very, very powerful. There's a lot of great tools in it as well. If you are looking for some action items or implementation plans, you are more than welcome to pull any of those out of this plan and add it to your DEI work or a plan, or add it to your affirmative action plan. This is our plan, the state's plan. So I want to make sure that you all have access to this. So consider it stolen. Jonah, I love you. So the executive order 2211, so that's short for 2022-11. It is the second one listed. If you click on that link, you will find it available to download. And when you download it, it is a 4-pager. And it was, gosh, I felt so honored to be a part of the revisions of this. And the work that I'll do, the education workshops that I'll be doing, you'll see me referring to the executive order. And yeah, that's what it looks like. Now, the elements of the executive order fall into 3 themes. And you could also translate these 3 themes to visions. And these are what's in the this DEI action plan. Now, what we mean by dismantling, we're looking at, by dismantling institutional and structural racism in state government, we will see change. We will see huge impacts historically and currently to underserved and the under-resourced communities. And by building, what we mean by that is, by building a more equitable state, everyone has the opportunity to thrive and everyone has their voice heard. Now, to ensure, what we mean by that is, by ensuring an inclusive and welcoming state, we can celebrate our collective diversity of race, of ethnicity, culture, color, disability, gender identity, marital status, so many things, immigration status, veteran status, economic status. There's a lot. I'm going to refer again back to the DI action plan as a toolkit. We have at the end, there's a glossary of inclusive language. So if you're writing your affirmative action plan or having conversations or facilitating conversations and are looking to use inclusive language, the action plan has it at the end, the glossary of inclusive language and some definitions. It's really useful. Now, so understanding that implementation looks different for each agency, when we look at examples for each theme, they may work for your agency or they may not. I think the important thing is to know that you can customize to fit what works for your agency. I've met with 60 plus agencies already since May, and y'all are so special, brings really great perspectives, but we also all share the same struggles. And so what I've learned is that there's no one size fits all when it comes to my role in helping you all kind of succeed in meeting these orders. And so I'm going to take an approach where I'm going to meet you where you're at. And so I'm going to share some examples. And again, they may not work for your agency, but we can work together in coming up with a way that does work for your agency. So the numbers that are listed next to the end of the bullets, they are, it's the directive on the executive order. So when we're looking at dismantle, what we're seeing is conversations have to happen at the top. Yeah, so like agency directors, administrators, being able to discuss what that looks like, and also talking about what are the goals to improve hiring and developmental opportunities. When we're looking at recruiting and attracting talent and diverse talent, we want to include the responsibilities of DEI work in our job announcements, in our job descriptions, because what it really is, everyone has a role in DEI and affirmative action work, whether it be you're a supporter, you're a person that is doing the workshops, everyone has a role. We'll probably figure out what that role is. And we could do that together if you're not sure. When we're looking at build, I say create, participate, and/or conduct, because as I mentioned earlier, a one size fits all is an approach that I am taking, where some agencies have the space and the bandwidth and the people to create workshops, trainings, facilitate conversations, and some don't. And I'm going to give a shout out to DCBS. I think, Veronica, I think you're here when I really enjoyed meeting with you, because you have an approach where you create these trainings and programs and you invite other agencies to join. And I think that's a very beautiful approach. And I think it is something that I would love, yes, spirit guide. I would love to see more of that happen with agencies, is lift each other up and invite your colleagues to some of these sessions, especially for some agencies that maybe only have 4 FTE. Some agencies have 6,000, some have 300, some have 400, some have 40. Invite each other. Let's do this together. Yeah. So.
Thank you, Juliet. And I'm going to add to this that for years I've been partnering with different agencies, with revenue, with ODOT, with Department of Justice. So, I want to continue the work that we partner. Last month, we partnered with Business Oregon and DHS, and we brought intersectionality, and it's about what is impacting communities of LGBTQ while aging.
Mm.
And it was amazing what DHS brought to us and to the community and everybody that attended. It was one of the best attended sessions that we had. So
Yeah, thank you, Veronica.
thank you.
Yeah, and also Blake, mentioned earlier, we partnered with you and, in your agency for the Juneteenth event. Spoken word is beautiful. When I lived in California, that was a big thing. Like spoken word was everywhere in colleges, in the clubs, in the bars, like it was everywhere. And it was just a great way to just celebrate everything. So I was so happy to see that we partnered with y'all on that. Yeah, Michelle, our small 29 FTE agency appreciate when the larger agencies share their events with us. Yes, that makes my heart grow. Sharing is caring. Now, let's see. So under the theme of build, so another example is to use results from professional development, performance assessments, and/or performance evaluations to improve processes and procedures. So basically what this is saying is we want to create a mechanism to track your efforts so that we could use it to create informed decisions to create a more inclusive environment in training programs and helping educate folks. Like we want to meet you where you're at. And in order for us to meet you or your employees where they're at, is we have to create a mechanism to track that. And I'm going to also give a shout out to Oregon Lottery, because I think that you all did a really great job. When I was with y'all, y'all were had created a great way for building education, following up with conversation, following up with even more conversations with the quarterly conversations, where you're able to track that. I don't know if you all wanted to share a little bit about it, you can, but you don't have to. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I was just really proud of the work that y'all were doing. So
thanks, Juliet. And I'll just say that it was one of our efforts to show that DEIB is a part of our culture, and it was formally recognized as part of our culture and one of our key values now. But in our quarterly reflecting and planning, it's meant about growth mindset and so on. But instead of cornering people on DEIB, we were inviting employees to learn. So every quarter, managers and employees have discussions around, what have you learned in the last quarter? What's something new you've learned around DEIB? And it's just started these conversations that we haven't had necessarily before or had in constructive ways. So we've also been teaching teams how to have constructive conversations and bring different perspectives and to just listen for understanding and with care. And what does that look like in the workplace? So thanks, Juliet.
yeah,
We're feeling really good about it. We've got some great results.
that's amazing. And Sherry, I think what you all did really well. I always want to say what we did really well, but I know like I'm not there anymore. But what I really loved was your inclusion of executive leadership, and how anytime there was an educational opportunity or sharing out a video, you had an executive team leader send an email out and share some experiences. And that is an example of dismantling to include agency leadership. So that was something that they did as well. That was great. Now looking at Ensure. So, yep, executive team members prioritizing sharing personal stories. Yep, yeah. So when we look at Ensure, we want to be able to, we want to celebrate. We want people to know like there are resources out there. But that also includes providing resources in different ways, different channels, email, Zoom, in-person learning, Zoom learning, there's so many different ways, but, communicate resources available to employees, if they have concerns of discrimination in the area of hiring, retention, promotion, and career development. Really what this is saying is, if you have the resources, be sure to communicate it out, because sometimes, especially new employees, they don't know what they don't know. Yeah, so be able to create a mechanism where you are consistently sharing out the resources, especially now in a time where there's so much external factors going on, and our worlds are like our personal, our professional, like our worlds are meshed, right? And so anytime that we could share and continue to share resources, do that. Yes, empowerment is everything, and it starts with education. That kind of reminds me, I know we have about like 6 minutes left, but that kind of reminds me of like being in the classroom and seeing like those like the original memes or the gifs of like a picture of something, and it says like education is empowerment. Do y'all remember those like posters? I remember those. Yes. And then so looking at point number 2 under ensure. Agency processes and systems address accessibility and ease of access. So in the executive order, so I actually put this in kind of like plain language here in this slide. But what that basically is saying is every agency has, you have your own systems. Some agencies use Workday, some use iLearn, some use, for recruiting. At Lottery, we use Ceridian. Oh no, wait. iCIMS. Like, oh my gosh, I forgot. iCIMS. So every agency has their own systems that they're using. And we want to make sure that your employees know how to use them. So, providing training, creating a space, allocating time to walk through how to use the technology that the agency uses. Let's kind of think about when we first went into like lockdown, right? And so some roles had the privilege and the opportunity to work remote. Some didn't, right? Now, the positions that had the opportunity and the privilege to work remote, technology was a huge thing. How many times were we, I know sometimes like I reached a point where I was like, oh my gosh, my technology is not working, or I'm not sure I know how to use, this system. If we provide and allocate the time to train our employees on how to use the technology that we have, it just creates, you think about retention, you think about employees like that, being able to meet them where they're at, right? And empower them to use the systems. So that's basically what it's saying. Right. I love seeing y'all connect in the chat. It makes my heart happy. My heart is always happy. But so I threw a lot at y'all, history, research, a lot of stuff. But so 3 takeaways from this entire workshop today is that the Executive Order 2211 exists to guide your efforts. We want to help you, okay? And when you see affirmative action, it means do something. It's simple, do something. Easier said than done though, right? I know, but I think it's a great starting point. And the third is, if we want equality of opportunity and equality of results, then we must include and center race in the conversation. And I'm going to expand a little bit on that. And, I think the question here is why? Why do we lead with race? And so we, think about racism in US history is the most pervasive and embedded form of discrimination in US history. So by focusing on dismantling racial discrimination, we'll be able to address other forms of discrimination in the process. Now, what I'm not saying is that other forms of discrimination are not an issue. Instead, what I'm saying is that theory suggests that by working on the root issue and other issues it'll benefit from the changes made. It's similar to like a ripple effect. Yeah. And I've had conversations like this with one of my really good friends who's a critical race scholar. And she introduced me to centering the margins. And so basically that's what it is. It's centering the margins. So I'm going to end it there. And I am really proud of myself for ending on time or early. And for those of you who have a work phone and want to schedule a follow-up session with me and process together or kind of go over anything that I shared, you can scan this QR code. It'll take you straight to my booking page, and we can schedule a 45-minute conversation. Or I think Brianna will drop in the chat box the link. So if you don't have that, and it's a super long link, I couldn't find a trusted resource to shorten the link, but that is that. And I really do hope that this was helpful. And I will see you all next week. It'll allow you all to process what you learned. And then next week, we can dive into putting an affirmative action plan together.